The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you.
Many of Jesus' disciples who were listening said, "This saying is hard. Who can accept it?" Since Jesus knew that his disciples were murmuring about this, he said to them, "Does this shock you? What if you were to see the Son of Man ascending to where he was before? It is the Spirit that gives life, while the flesh is to no avail. The words I have spoken to you are spirit and life, but there are some of you who do not believe." Jesus knew from the beginning the ones who would not believe and the ones who would betray him. And he said, "For this reason I have told you that no one can come to me unless it is granted to him by the Father." As a result of this, many of his disciples returned to their former ways of life and no longer accompanied him. Jesus said to the 12, "Do you also want to leave?" Simon Peter answered him, "Master, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and are convinced that you are the Holy One of God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
In the readings that we have here today, we have this challenge to make a decision to follow Jesus Christ or not to follow him. We see in this reading from the book of Joshua that challenge. If it does not please you to serve the Lord, decide today whom you will serve. The gods of your fathers served beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in the country you are now indwelling. As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. And so we cannot straddle the fence. We cannot say, I think I'm going to maybe do this or do that, or I'm going to pick and choose. There's no straddling the fence. You either choose God or not. If you think you're going to straddle the fence, you will go to hell. Let me repeat that because this is very important. If you think you're going to straddle the fence and kind of sort of follow God, you will be in hell when it comes time for your judgment. God does not want somebody halfway. For those of you who are married, would you want your spouse to say, well, maybe I'll straddle the fence on this marriage? I mean, you wouldn't put up with that. That would not be a good marriage, and that would not be a holy marriage. You'd probably doubt the faithfulness of your spouse. It is not by chance that the second reading talks about marriage. And then in the gospel is John 6, talking about the Eucharist. This is the marital banquet that we have entered into today in this Mass. God offers his very body for us, that he would enter into our very bodies and renew us and strengthen us and give us all the graces that we need this day, week in and week out, for those who are able, day in and day out. So God challenges us today to follow him, to believe in him, to trust in him in all things, that what he says is true. We do not believe in the Eucharist because of human reasoning. It's just simply because God says so. There is no human reasoning that would say, of course God would make himself bread so that he could enter into us. There is no human reasoning. It is God's plan and his wisdom that he would come to us in an unbloody manner, that he would enter into us so that we could accept him, love him, and adore him. Does this shock you? Does this shock you that he would come to us in the Eucharist? It is the Spirit that gives life. It is not the divine nature to become bread. Neither is it the divine nature to become a human being, but we know it to be so because it was God's plan. He said so, and He is the Word made flesh. How good it is to know the Word made flesh. How good it is to know Him, to believe in Him, to be consoled by Him, by things that words cannot describe, because it is God, the indescribable, the infinite one, the almighty, the all-powerful one, would come and stoop down to us each and every week, showing us His love and His mercy, healing our hearts, our minds, our souls, healing families, even our bodies. You will see in the boards before you the Eucharistic miracles. Some of them are in Spanish, some of them are in English. We see there, and we can see miracles that have been produced by the Eucharist, so that God could give us a reason to believe that His word would be fulfilled, that we may know of His mercy. Some of these miracles are the bleeding heart of Jesus, where we see in the bleeding Eucharist, they do scientific research and know that it came from it's kind of funny, they took the host, what was consecrated at Mass, not tell the scientists where it came from and say, tell us what this is. And they would say, this came from the right aortical ventricle of the heart, of a human heart. But they were perplexed, because they couldn't figure out why these cells were still beating. It is the living Eucharist. It is our living God who would bring into us life itself. And we thank God that He would come to us in such a bold way, yet hidden. It requires faith. We are saved by faith, and faith alone are we saved in a certain sense. But faith in what? Faith in the Eucharist. That Jesus truly is present here in this Eucharist, that He would come to us and show us His mercy and love. Do you believe that? So many Catholics don't. Do you believe that God would dare to enter into us sinners and refresh us and give us His grace? How good God is. It is proof once more on this altar that He does desire the good for us, that He will not hit us with a lightning bolt, with a hammer, with anger or hatred or violence, because that is not the character of God. We know the character of God by what He does, and what He does right here on this altar. You know a man by what they do. We know this God-man by what He does. He comes to us, offering us His salvation. As we read before in this reading of John chapter 6, no one can enter the presence of God unless he eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink His blood, making an absolute statement. The Eucharist is as necessary as baptism. It is through that faith in what He says, the Word made flesh, that the Word would indeed be made flesh on this altar, in humility and compassion, and His littleness and His kindness. We discover the wisdom of God, the power of God. How awesome is our God, who so happens to be the God, the only God, the one God, the true God. That is a God of mercy and compassion. So many people will blame God for the evils in this world. The evil in this world is due to sin. It's due to man's heart and what man does. But the goodness of God would come to us and rescue us from the grasp of Satan, the father of lies, the prince of darkness, and the murderer from the beginning. He would save us from our own passions of the flesh, our own desire to retaliate back in the ways of this world that only offer death and suffering. For this world is passing away. Everything in this world breaks. I remember that when we were kids. You get Christmas gifts, give it a month, all the toys break. After a month getting your new iPhone, all of a sudden it slows down. The things of this world are passing away. Science even learns new things and goes on to more things, and what is now learned is a passé thing. And they find out, oh, maybe we were wrong on that. But the truth of Jesus Christ endures forever, and his love endures forever. Do you believe that? Are you willing to give yourself to him and make that decision today, that will decision, to go and to follow him, to make him the center of our life, not the world, not the sins of this world and the emptiness of this world, but to give ourselves to him and be fulfilled, to have life. For the Father of life gave himself that we would have life and life to the fullest. The salvation he offers us is not just a salvation preserving us from the pains of hell, but he gives us his very self, and that we would have peace and joy for all eternity, that we would get to participate in him as he comes and enters into our very souls.